And she was like, oh yeah? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah. And then she just pushed me down the staircase.
This rapper sat down, looked dead into the camera, and started talking about secrets she never wanted the world to hear. Deep secrets that could rip their lives apart. By the time we are done, everything you thought you knew about these women was going to look completely different. Nicki Minaj. Here is what people know about Nicki Minaj: the wigs, the alter egos, the chart records, the way she took over the rap game and held it down for over a decade. What people did not know, at least not the full story, is that behind all of that, there was a family that was quietly falling apart, and when it finally came out in the open, it came out in the worst way possible. Nicki's older brother, Jelani Maraj, was convicted in 2017 of wrongly touching against his then 11-year-old stepdaughter. The act went on repeatedly over an 8-month period in 2015, happening at his Long Island home while the girl's mother was away at work. The victim took the stand and testified in full detail, and her younger brother, who was only 8 years old, witnessed one of the assaults and later told the court what he saw. According to what he told investigators, Maraj threatened the little boy and warned him that if he told anyone, he would never see his mother again. The DNA evidence was one of the biggest talking points of the whole trial, and this is where things got really messy in the press. The prosecution's own DNA expert, Dr. Erica Zymak, got on the stand and said the results were inconclusive because there were 3 separate contributors found in a single DNA sample taken from the girl's pajama. 3 contributors on one sample is not a match. That is a problem for the prosecution's whole argument. But the press ran a different story, and Nicki's mother, Carol Maraj, was not going to let that sit without saying something.
The DNA expert for the people said, according to the transcript, inconclusive. Now, last time I checked, inconclusive tells me one cannot conclude or come to a decision.
Carol also had questions about how the physical evidence even got collected in the first place. Based on what she described, the plaintiff and her mother were the ones who came out of a room carrying the pajama pants and placed them on the bed themselves, meaning the police never went and found the evidence on their own. She was clear that this detail is sitting right there in the official transcripts for anyone to read. The defense's whole argument was that the case was built on an extortion plan aimed at getting to Nicki's money. According to Carol, a social worker who worked with the family's children testified that the younger brother, Grant, told her while at school that they were about to come into $25 million. Jelani did not have anywhere close to that kind of money, which meant the boy had heard something from someone else, and Carol believed she knew exactly where that conversation started. Then Carol shared one of the most disturbing parts of the whole interview. She talked about what she personally saw while the plaintiff's family was staying with her, describing how the mother dealt with the children with electric cords, brushes, and whatever else she could grab, and that the mother even said this herself on the witness stand in open court.
I live with them. I know how afraid they will be. Sometimes after a beating, they wouldn't talk for 2 or 3 days.
Jelani Maraj was sentenced to 25 years to life in January 2020. Nicki reportedly paid for his bail and kept supporting him financially all through the legal process, which went on for years. The family's side of what happened was never really given a public platform until Carol sat down for that interview, and most people following the case never heard it. And this was not even the only dark history inside Nicki's family. Her late father, Robert Maraj, was described as a violent man who was addicted to drugs, physically abused her mother, and at one point set their house on fire. Nicki has talked openly about growing up scared inside that house and praying that she would one day get rich enough to save her family from all of it. She got the money. The family just had its own plans. Missy Elliott. When people talk about Missy Elliott, they talk about the music videos that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen, the production credits stacked across a whole generation of hits, and the way she just bent the whole rap game to her will without ever seeming like she was trying that hard. What took a lot longer to come out was the life she was actually living behind all of that, because the house she grew up in was nothing close to peaceful. Missy's father, Ronnie Elliott, physically abused her mother on what Missy described as a daily thing. She grew up watching her mother take that abuse day after day and keep it moving, carrying all of it quietly while the family stayed together on the outside. Missy remembered seeing black eyes on her mother, a dislocated shoulder, and living in constant fear of what was coming next. She was so scared of what she might find when she came home that she would not even go to sleepovers as a little girl because she did not want to be away from her mother overnight. One memory in particular has stayed with Missy her whole life. Her father threatened the family and made young Missy and her mother go outside and stand there without clothes. Missy was screaming, begging him not to kill her mother. She was a child going through something no child should ever have to see. Her mother finally got out of that situation when Missy was 14 years old, but the damage from all those years inside that house was already deep in a way that took decades to even start talking about. And then there was something else happening that had nothing to do with her father. Starting when Missy was just 8 years old, a 16-year-old cousin began abusing her, calling her to his house after school and doing this to her almost every day for about a year. She said she knew something was wrong even then, but she was too young to fully understand what was happening to her or to have the words to explain it to anyone. She kept both of those things private for a very long time. Through her whole rise in the 90s and into the 2000s, while she was putting her name on some of the biggest records in the game and earning her own spot as one of the greatest to ever do it, those wounds stayed hidden. When she did finally start opening up about them, she said the healing came from her mother and from her faith.
When Missy went open about the abuse, I was like, this is our secret. You don't tell the world what happened. And it was like, Mom, we have to let people know that we made it. She said, that's how you deal with it, Mom. You get it out in the open. I have to get these scars off of me. You need to get these scars off of you.
Having those conversations was very therapeutic. It was a major release. I can breathe now, and I feel good about it.
Missy took everything she had been through and channeled it into a career that ran on something deeper than talent alone. She became a spokesperson for Break the Cycle, an organization set up to help women surviving domestic violence, and turned her mother's story and her own into something that could actually help other people. For years, nobody on the outside even knew any of this had happened. She has said those memories do not go away and still feel just as fresh as the day they were made. Every video, every hit, every performance, all of that was real, but none of it erased what she came from. Missy just figured out how to carry both things at the same time. Lil Kim. Lil Kim built her whole image around being fearless. That was the energy she carried into every room, every interview, every record she put out. What most people did not know was that fearlessness was something she had to build herself from scratch, because the home she grew up in gave her very little to work with. Her father, Linwood Jones, was a former military man who brought that military style of control into the house and turned it into something the family could barely survive. There was constant verbal abuse, physical abuse, and zero warmth or real affection shown to his kids. He ran that house like a military unit, and Kim was just a young girl trying to exist inside of it. The marriage broke down for those same reasons, and when her mother finally left, she took Kim with her. But life outside of that house turned out to be just as hard in different ways.
Kim and I, eventually started living out the trunk of my car, It's not something that I'm very proud of, but I did what I thought I had to do.
That was Kim's mother, talking about a period when the two of them had nowhere to go and were sleeping in a car together. The courts eventually stepped in and decided Kim should go back to live with her father and brother, saying it was the more stable option given the situation at the time. But what stability looked like under Linwood Jones was its own kind of problem for a teenage girl who already knew exactly who she was. Around the age of 14, a fight between Kim and her father got so bad and so physical that Kim nearly stabbed him. And after that, she was done. One day, he locked the door and she did not come back. She dropped out of school and spent time living on the streets of Brooklyn with no real place to stay, getting by in ways that included trading for a roof over her head and moving with crowds that were deep in street life.
That's when she began to struggle hard.
She really started, doing real bad, That's when she started hustling.
None of that backstory ever made it onto the album covers or into the press releases. The world got the platinum records, the MTV moments, the fur coats, and the attitude. The Brooklyn streets that actually built her were kept out of the story. When Biggie came across her and decided to bring her into his world, he was not finding some polished artist waiting for her big break. He was pulling somebody out of a situation that had already taken a real toll on her. The abuse Kim went through as a child, and then again in later relationships where one ex reportedly broke her nose, contributed to surgeries that became tabloid gossip, rather than anyone stopping to understand them as part of a much longer story of hurt that she was trying to recover from. Kim has since spoken about all of this more openly, and she has even said that she eventually took care of her father herself when he developed Alzheimer's, using that time as a way to find some kind of peace with everything that happened. After everything he put her through, she was still the one who showed up for him at the end. That alone tells you a lot about who Kimberly Jones really is underneath all of it. Cardi B. Cardi B has always moved like somebody with nothing to lose, and once you know what her home life actually looked like growing up, that energy starts to make a whole lot more sense. She has always been pretty open about where she came from, but even her version of being open had a limit on it for a long time. Her parents were strict Caribbean immigrants, her mother from Trinidad and her father from the Dominican Republic, raising two daughters in the Bronx where money was tight and discipline was not something they played with. Cardi has talked about her mother beating her regularly, saying she understood it as tough love and that it was the thing that kept her focused and in school when other options were right there in front of her. But the moment that really hits different is what happened the day her mother found out she had been stripping. Cardi had been running a whole story on her mother, telling her she was babysitting for a rich family and getting paid $100 a day just to help kids with their homework. That lie held up until one argument changed everything.
One time she got me mad and we was arguing and I was like, oh, it's your fault cause you kicked me out the house. Now this is why I'm stripping. And she was like, oh yeah? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah. And then she just pushed me down the staircase.
Cardi ended up getting pushed out of the family home entirely after a falling out that also involved her sister Hennessy, and for a real stretch of time, she was out there completely on her own. The stripping was never just about money or a come-up story. It was how she survived after the home she grew up in stopped being somewhere she could go back to. That is the part that always gets skipped over when people talk about her. The focus goes to how she used social media, how she built her following, how Bodak Yellow took over the whole summer. What gets less attention is that she was building all of that from a place of real instability, with a family situation that had already broken down before anyone was paying attention to her name, Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion has talked about losing her mother more openly than most people in her position would ever be willing to. She has brought it up in interviews, put it into her music, and carried it publicly in a way that takes real strength at her level of fame. But the fuller picture of where she actually came from, including what her father's life really looked like, stayed out of the conversation for a lot longer. Her father, Joseph Pete Jr., was locked up for drug dealing for most of the first 8 years of Megan's life. She was visiting him in prison as a little kid. That is the world she was born into, growing up with a father who was not there because the streets had taken him somewhere she could not reach. When he finally came home, she was 8 years old, and from that point on, she has described him as her best friend, the person she was closest to. They had 7 years together before a shooting took his life when Megan was 15, right at the start of her freshman year of high school. She lost him right in the middle of the years when a girl needs her father around the most, and then, about a decade after that, she lost her mother too.
Everybody knows that I had lost my mom. So that's, a thing that's really heavy on me all the time. And like I said, I just try to keep my close people around me because they definitely lift me up.
Her mother, Holly Thomas, was a rapper herself who went by Hollywood in the underground scene. She was the first person Megan ever saw doing what Megan would eventually do, and she watched her mother write music, go to the studio, and put in the work long before she tried any of it herself. Holly also became her manager as her career started to grow. She passed away from a brain tumor in 2019, the same year Megan's name was really starting to travel everywhere.
I definitely still go through it every day, but I know how to keep going because my mama would have wanted me to keep going. She would be like, Megan, get your ass up. She was definitely hard on me, and I just have her in the back of my head every day.
What do you think about these secrets? Let me know in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.